Moving forward, though, probably going to go a little bit over time, but I'm cool with it. A little bit over because we're going to talk Back to the Future Part 2. And this is an interesting film too because Joe and I hadn't seen it, and we'd all seen the first one. We all seen you come out of the womb having seen Back to the Future, I believe. But we all saw the first one, and we were going to talk about bringing back required viewing on the show, and we did last month with Back to the Future. We said it's a 4-star film. It's got to abide by the 20-year rule to be. It came out at least 20 years ago to prove timely, to prove relevant, and it's a movie you must see. It's not only a great film, but it's important to the history of film. And which I think we agree on all counts with the first Back to the Future. Me and Joe have never seen the sequels. So we thought it'd be interesting just to kind of cover them. We're going to talk about Back to the Future Part 3 on the 1st of July. That's what we planned tentatively. In this world, it's almost foolish to plan the state of everything. But we're talking Back to the Future Part 2, which is available to stream on Netflix. All 3 films are on Netflix. And I guess to start things off over here, I like this quite a bit. This was a fun sequel. And I'm not going to keep going like, oh, well, the first one did this better, you know what I mean, whatever. I don't want to do that with this one. I'm grateful first and foremost they got everybody back. Yeah. Like they got everybody back really for it. That was the first thing that stuck out. Robert's
Oh, wait a second. No, actually, they did not get everyone back. For Back to the Future Part 2, or were you leading that up to something?
Oh, no, I know. I was saying they got everybody, like they got the main people back at the very least. Okay. Between Lloyd, they didn't get every single person back. Yes, it's not like an American Pie situation, but they got Lloyd, they got Fox back, they got Zemeckis in the director's chair. So you at least have the 3 pillars of the series at least there. I know there's a few, names missing with it, but
Crispin Glover's the big one, which is the dad of the first one.
Yes, that's the big omission. Crispin Glover not being in it. I think he was doing something else at the time. I don't remember.
He's just freaking weird, dude. So
I don't know if the Friday the 13th movie he was in came out at the same time. I'm not quite sure. I think
he
was in
River's
the final
Edge?
chapter.
I'm just looking at his filmography, but apparently he was working on something else at the time or whatever. But anyway, trivia is that in the second movie they cleverly got side shots of another actor to make it look like it was Crispin Glover, and that led to a whole thing. But regardless, yeah, they did get everyone back, and you can see the spirit of the movie just kind of easily come from the first to the next, which you don't get with every sequel. I should also note that while Steve and Joe have seen the movie, only the first movie, and just watched the second one recently. I have come out of the womb watching all 3 in a row because we had the box set. So I was like, oh, first one. Okay, second one. Oh, yeah, third one. Yeah, dude. Oh, now it's a Western. But anyway, so that's the dynamic we're going into this.
Yeah, and I thought it'd be fun to do it like that. But I'll add this, too, and I'll throw it over to you guys, too, is that, the first movie, I will say the first movie, I mean, it felt loftier in a way, it's well, Marty's got to do this or else there's a good chance he's not going to exist. There's a chance he's not going to even exist in the future. This movie is a lot more screwy, for lack of a better term. It's looser, it's more fun. It gets into the tangled webs of time travel, which I think is really fun to kind of explore the paradoxes. And I think the fun part of this movie, one of the most fun parts, and then we'll throw it over to Joe. I think one of the most fun parts about this movie are the characters, especially Doc Brown, rushing and breathlessly trying to explain what the hell is happening for themselves and for the audience. It's a device, it really is. But trying to breathlessly keep up with the shenanigans that are happening over here because of the alternate timelines they've construed for themselves.
Oh, is it being thrown at me?
Yeah, yes. It's your turn. It's your turn,
man, I gotta say this. Everybody tells me 2 different stories when it comes to these sequels. They either tell me the sequels suck or they're not as good. And the thing is I was going into this, I'm like, all right, look, I'm going into this giving it a fair shot. Because at this point, it's I've heard so many different sides and takes on it, and I give every film a fair shot. I will say this, no matter what, Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox carry this movie throughout a lot of the problems I did end up having with it. They're just fantastic on screen together. I absolutely love watching them play Marty and Doc Brown. I think they're great, and they're great in this as well. I'm not gonna stay on the negatives too long, but I'm not gonna lie. The first 30 minutes of this movie, where they're in 2015, I was not a fan of it. I was honestly really not enjoying that whole
Really?
segment. No, I thought the whole like Marty Jr. Thing was kind of stupid. Like I wasn't really enjoying that. I thought the Griff was just an annoying character who just constantly screams and yells. I wasn't enjoying the first like 30 minutes of this movie. I didn't mind the whole like look how the future's supposed to be type of thing. I thought that was fun. I was like, hey, look how the future was supposed to be, and we just didn't get this at all.
I'd rather live in that movie's future.
Exactly. But yeah, the first 30 minutes of this movie, I was like, man, this kind of just feels like it's all over the place. Like he's got to go save his son. He can't run into his son. Marty's got to go save his son, I should say, and he can't run into him. There's all this other like situation happening. It was just, for me, the first 30 minutes was way too much going on. And it's like, as much as I was laughing at Doc Brown just like exaggerating speed, net break speed, like, you know, explaining what's happening, why they have to do it, I was also like, yeah, but I also did like the first movie where we took our time to really figure out like how Marty's gonna get back to the future. But I will say this, and I think we could give it like a few spoilers away and whatnot. I won't go into too much. When he goes back to 1985 and Biff is in control of everything, the movie picked up for me there and got a lot better. Like from the second act onward, I would say I actually really started enjoying this movie a lot more. I love Biff's future. I love how exaggerated it is. I think Biff is like actually pretty good in this movie too. And then when he has to go back to 1955 to make sure Biff doesn't get the sports almanac, as well as avoiding Marty's original run in the first film, I thought, okay, this is much more fun. This is much more streamlined than I thought that first 30 minutes was for me. I don't know. For me, I don't know about you guys, but the first 30 minutes of this movie kind of felt like a mess. They also just started doing that sequelitis stuff again. Like, he goes to the same diner, but in the future. He gets in another skateboard chase, but in the future. And I was like, please don't tell me this movie is just Back to the Future, but in the future. Like, I just don't want it to be that.
Joe, you're gonna freaking hate the third one.
Oh no!
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We're gonna have to come with the knives out.
In the Wild West?
Joe, you know, it's funny, Joe. That's actually how I felt about it too.
No.
In the second movie because the high points of every time jump, because this movie technically visits 4 different time periods: 1985 normal, 1985 cursed, 2015 as viewed through the lens of 1985, and then 1955 as a, you know, harken back to the original movie's whole plot line, which is just an achievement that they're able to make that a coherent storyline at all. So kudos. But the real high point for every single time jump, every single new locale or new time actually, is just the fact that you just want to know what the world is like, or what 1985 thinks, or sorry, I should say 86, what the world thought of each of these time periods through the lens of what was then the real life, the present 1980s. And that is just the hilarious thing about every single time jump. Unfortunately, Joe, as you said, when the second movie tries to develop its own story in each time period and then connect it to all the others, it falters there. It doesn't have time to flesh things out, and therefore the scriptwriters probably even knew this. That way they just kind of had to rush, like, okay, you know what, let's just have Michael J. Fox just be a dweeby kid and just give him no characterization, whatever. I agree, that's where it falters. But
not to interrupt you, they had to have a way to get Biff the sports almanac too.
Yeah, exactly.
They had to have that because that thing is so integral to this plot. They had to have a setup. Joe stole my point earlier about the sequelitis, because it does feel like they're rehashing a lot of the most memorable bits of the first movie and updating them for like 1980. What is it? 1986. This thing came out. What year was this again?
89.
80. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, shoot. 89. Never mind. Yeah.
89. Okay, that's right, because the third one too is a 90s one. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. I was just gonna say wow, but anyway, 1989 view of 2015. So I do understand why they did it like that, and I thought it was fun. in a certain way. It was kind of like a 13-year-old hopped up on Monsters' view of the future. That's what it almost felt like. Like, and that was kind of the enjoyable part of it for me, just in like a silly way. The one thing I do want to say about this, the major thing I want to say is, my God, does that second act get dark with Biff.
gosh.
With the way Biff treats Marty's mother, like, holy crap. Like, I'm watching this thing. I'm like, this is dark, man. I did not expect it to take that route, especially when he's threatening to, like, cut off the kids. Like I was like, holy crap, man. This thing is actually pretty dark. I thought it worked because it's exaggerated enough in a cartoony way that, like, it sells it. It's still dark, but it almost feels like a Tim Burton, like, set piece in a way. But it was really interesting that they took it that way. It doesn't stay dark for very long, but that scene stayed with me even like a week after I watched it. Yeah. Like, it stayed with me. So I have to laud that, because I have to laud Zemeckis and the writers and the filmmakers on that, because they sold it.
You mentioned that, but honestly, the first one, you're right. The second one overall does get darker than the first, but the first one had elements of that too that kind of everyone just kind of forgets about mostly because, hey, Huey Lewis in the news. But in the first movie, it's like, Doc gets gunned down by terrorists, like, straight up.
Yeah.
He just straight up gets killed. Also, like, in the first one, in the bad timeline of the first movie, dude, Marty's life fucking sucks. I feel bad that I used the F-bomb in Back to the Future instead of Just Mercy, but whatever.
You used two because you used it once probably without even thinking during AMC theater.
Okay, good. So now we
got to go dry next week.
Yeah, there we go. But, it's like, dude, like, holy crap, George is like a complete spineless dude. This marriage is falling apart and, everything. But yeah, dude, it pales in comparison to part 2, where Biff straight up owns the police, and you could just murder Marty with wanton abandon.
That is a fair point. That is a fair point, though, about the darker elements in the first film. But I mean, the first film too. I mean, the most problematic aspect, and it's played for laughs very effectively. But like, the most problematic aspect of the first movie is there's the overarching potential of incest the whole movie.
Yeah.
Intergenerational incest, in a strange way.
But also Biff in the first one straight up sexually assaults Lorraine.
Yeah.
Straight up. Which no one. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of these movies that are just freaking wild. And I like it too because they work. Like, all the actors, you can tell. Like at least the main group, even Michael Wilson, who plays Biff, they're so good. They're so entrenched in their characters. That it really sells it.
You just called him Bill.
That was a misspeak, as they like to say. No, but you're very very Freudian. I didn't know where you were going with it first there. Anyway, get your mind out of the gutter. The other aspect, the one thing I will complain about, though, the other thing, I wish that Marty's girlfriend was a bigger part of it.
Yeah.
I kind of hated how in 2015 they just drag her lifeless body along for the ride. Seriously, she does nothing in this movie.
She literally gets
she does
knocked out
nothing
3 times in the movie. That's literally her character.
I was kind of frustrated by that. I'm like, really? I know you don't want to you don't want to ruin the whole time travel. You don't want to make her aware technically of totally what's going on. I get that in the movies world, but it feels like dead weight. Did you really need to even include her if you weren't going to do anything with the character with Jennifer? That was the one thing that did kind of bother me in the beginning too. That bothered me, I think, more than anything than the rehashing of the first film's elements in the 2015 future. I think that bugged me.
I don't think this movie passes the Bechdel test at all. But I should say that I should mention that according to what I remember from the behind the scenes, Robert Zemeckis or any of the writers or whoever did not plan on a sequel. At the end of the first movie, they had that line about, oh, Marty, your kids, something's got to be done about your kids. And then the movie ends and they drive off, whatever. That was just supposed to be a fun tagline or whatever, and just leave it to the imagination. It wasn't until the success of the first movie that I was like, okay, shit. I guess we got to do something with that line he said at the end. So that maybe that was just a case of them being caught not planning ahead. I believe there were even treatments of the film taking place in the 60s instead, which is like the next logical step from the 50s. But no, instead you got this crazy time hopping thing, time changing, time warping, whatever. And yeah, dude. We talked about it off air right before the show started, but it is on record that the writer, was it Zemeckis? I'm so sorry, but the writer,
I believe
of the movie
it was.
yeah, he came out saying that Biff Tannen was just 100% based on Donald Trump when I was writing this in
That's
1980,
wild.
whatever. And it's like, yeah, we've come full circle, man. So
I even
full
said
circle and
watching it,
spun off the rails.
I even said watching it in the future. I'm like, Biff's got like this Trumpian quality to him.
Yep.
But overall, if I'm going to give my final thoughts on it, I did really like it. It's like a screwball comedy take on the first movie.
Yeah.
And the first movie is like a bit hectic, but it's not as, I guess you'd say it's not as manic as this one, because this one's got like 3 different timelines bopping around and stuff. You get kind of dragged around. You're almost just by the end of it kind of going with it in some aspect. Like I said before, the characters are trying to breathlessly explain what the hell's going on half the time, you know, but it works. It does. I think that it's kept buoyant by a great team of characters between Wilson, Lloyd, and Fox, who are so good. It's also kept really interesting by kind of like a gripping climax too, when Marty has to go back to the, you know what I mean, back to the past, try and like sees himself playing Johnny Be Good, you know, and how he has to deal with that and that kind of rigmarole. So I thought that was fun too, and even the darker elements too, I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm really glad that Dom did bring up the darker elements in the first film that kind of go unnoticed, that really go unnoticed, you know, or you've just seen them so much and you know of the scenes, you don't really think about them. This was fun though. I enjoyed this sequel. I'm on Team Back to the Future Part 2. I like this one. What about you, Joe, for your first time?
It's funny because like this actually reminds me so much of like if Back to the Future never got a sequel, and then like today they decided to like do Back to the Future again, like do an actual sequel to it. This is how I imagine like they actually would have gone about it. I just look at it like the way the story is being put together. Like we're gonna have like moments from the first film show up again to give like the nostalgic feel, kind of like how a lot of these movies from the 80s come back and they have a sequel like today or whatever, like in 2020, 2019, like the ones that we're getting recently. For me though, like I said, I didn't like the first 30 minutes because like I felt like, once again, there was a bit too much going on. I was worried like what was gonna happen. I was like, oh my god, like I feel like this is starting to become a mess. You have Marty, then you have Junior Marty, then you have older Marty. I'm like, are these actually gonna be characters, or is this just like something? Because like I didn't even dig the old Marty either. I thought that was just kind of like a whole gag that I was not a fan of. Like honestly, yeah, that first 30 minutes, I was like, man, this is like straight out of gate 2 stars for me right now. When it gets to Biff and onward during the second act, like him being like this overlord of this whole town of Hisdale, and then him going back to Marty going back to 1955. God, man, this is so confusing to talk about sometimes. Marty going back to 1955 to stop Biff from giving the almanac. You know, the longer I explain this, the more I'm like, man, they really did make this complicated. I'll just wrap it up with this. It's fun. I had a good time, even though like I thought the first 30 minutes weren't that great. I still had a lot of fun. It is a fun sequel to me. It's nowhere near that first one, which I think is just an instant classic and like loved by so many. For me, if we're giving ratings, I give it 3 stars. The first film to me is a 4-star easy film. This is 3 stars for me.
I don't know if I tacked on my star rating. I would give it 3 stars.
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot for me as well.